It was a hot evening in Hollywood back in 1979. The famous Beverly Hills Hotel was holding one of its legendary parties where movie stars, sports athletes, and big bosses from the entertainment industry gathered to see and be seen. Muhammad Ali, fresh from his historic third heavyweight championship victory against Leon Spinks, was the main center of attention inside the luxurious ballroom. However, in a quieter corner of the party, a different type of performance was happening. Seagal, who was then a relatively unknown Aikido instructor teaching martial arts to the Hollywood elite, was showing his techniques to a fascinated audience of actors and producers. At 27 years old, Seagal was tall, thin, and moved with the smooth precision that would later make him a famous action movie star. He had been living in Japan for over 10 years, studying under Aikido masters, and had recently come back to America with a reputation as one of the most dangerous martial artists in the country. In Aikido, Seagal explained to his interested audience, "We do not block attacks, we redirect them. We use an attacker's own power against them. Even the strongest puncher becomes helpless against true Aikido technique." The crowd nodded with appreciation as Seagal effortlessly threw around volunteers, making grown men fly through the air with what looked like very little effort. That is when Muhammad Ali walked over. The greatest boxer had been watching from across the room, drinking his drink and observing the demonstration with the careful eye of a fighter who had faced every style of combat the world could offer. Ali had fought southpaws, orthodox fighters, sluggers, boxers, and everything in between. He had seen techniques from every corner of the globe, but something about Seagal's claims bothered him. "Excuse me," Ali said, his famous voice cutting through the noise of the crowd. "Did you just say that any attacker becomes helpless?" The room went completely silent. Every head turned toward the two men as they looked each other up and down. Seagal, dressed in traditional martial arts clothes, stood about the same height as Ali. But where Ali carried the relaxed confidence of a man who had conquered the world, Seagal showed the focused intensity of a traditional martial artist. "That is correct," Seagal replied calmly. "Aikido is the art of peace. We stop aggression without creating more violence." Ali smiled that famous Ali smile. "Is that so?" he asked. "Well, I will tell you what, Sensei. I have been hitting people professionally for 20 years, and I have never met anyone who could just redirect my punches. You really think your Aikido would work against a real fighter?" The tension in the room was very high. Here were two masters of combat, each absolutely sure of their abilities, facing off in front of Hollywood's elite. Seagal, never one to back down from a challenge, nodded toward an open space in the center of the room. "Would you like to find out?" The crowd immediately formed a circle. There were no phones or cameras in those pre-digital days, but every eye was focused on what was about to happen. "Now, I want to be clear," Seagal said as they moved to the center. "Aikido is not about hurting opponents. I will simply demonstrate how your attacks can be stopped and redirected." Ali took off his jacket and handed it to someone in the crowd. Underneath, he wore a simple white shirt that showed off the strong body that had carried him through wars with Foreman, Frazier, and every other heavyweight of his era. "Fair enough," Ali said. "But I want you to know something, Mr. Seagal. I may be a boxer, but I am not just some amateur throwing wild punches. I am the heavyweight champion of the world. My jab has been clocked at speeds that most people cannot even see." The crowd whispered nervously. This felt like it was escalating beyond a friendly demonstration. Seagal assumed his Aikido stance, hands relaxed at his sides, feet positioned in the traditional form he had learned in Osaka. "I understand. Please attack me as you would any opponent." Ali moved into his own stance. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of the traditional boxing stance everyone expected, Ali simply stood upright, hands at his sides, completely relaxed. "Hold on," Ali said with a grin that confused everyone in the room. "I have got a better idea. Why don't you hit me first?" The room erupted in confused whispers. This was not how it was supposed to go. Seagal looked genuinely puzzled. "I am sorry. You heard me," Ali said. That trademark confidence was coming from every word. "You hit me. Show everyone how powerful Aikido really is. Hit me as hard as you can." Seagal shook his head. "That is not how Aikido works. We do not start attacks." "Come on now," Ali pressed, moving closer. "You have been telling everyone how superior Aikido is to boxing. You have been saying how any attacker becomes helpless against your technique. Well, here I am, one of the most dangerous attackers in the world, and I am giving you a free shot. What is the problem?" The challenge hung in the air like smoke. Everyone in the room understood what was happening. Ali was flipping the script, turning Seagal's own philosophy against him. But then Ali did something that no one expected. He looked Steven Seagal straight in the eye and said, "Hit me as hard as you can." The room went dead silent. This was Muhammad Ali, the man who had taken shots from George Foreman that could knock down a tree, offering his chin to a martial arts instructor. Seagal hesitated for a long moment. Everything in his Aikido training told him not to start violence, but the challenge was clear, and backing down now would ruin everything he had just demonstrated to Hollywood's power players. "Very well," Seagal said quietly. He shifted into an attacking position, drawing his right hand back in preparation for what he intended to be a devastating strike. In Aikido, practitioners are taught precise striking techniques designed to end conflicts quickly and efficiently. Seagal stepped forward and threw his best punch directly at Muhammad Ali's face. What happened next took exactly 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds would become legendary in both Hollywood and martial arts circles. As Seagal's punch moved toward him, Ali did something that seemed almost casual. He tilted his head exactly 2 inches to the left. Seagal's fist passed harmlessly by Ali's ear, missing by what looked like a hair's breadth. But Ali was not done yet. In one smooth motion, while Seagal was still committed to his forward momentum, Ali reached up with his left hand and gently placed his index finger on Seagal's forehead. Not a push, not a strike, just a gentle touch. The Aikido master, suddenly realizing he was completely off balance and overextended, could not stop his forward momentum. Ali's finger, pressing against his forehead with the lightest possible pressure, guided Seagal's entire body past him. Seagal stumbled forward 3 steps before catching his balance, spinning around to face Ali, who hadn't moved from his original position. The room was dead silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then Muhammad Ali smiled that famous smile and said, "In boxing, we call that stick and move." The crowd erupted in nervous laughter. But Seagal was not laughing. He was staring at Muhammad Ali with something approaching awe. "How did you know exactly where my punch was going?" Seagal asked. Ali walked over and put a friendly hand on Seagal's shoulder. "Son, I have been reading punches since I was 12 years old. Your Aikido is beautiful, and I can see you have spent years perfecting it. But fighting isn't just about technique. It is about timing, distance, and understanding your opponent's intentions before they even know them themselves." What happened next surprised everyone in the room, including Ali himself. Steven Seagal bowed deeply, a traditional Japanese bow of respect and acknowledgement. "Would you teach me?" he asked quietly. For the next hour, Muhammad Ali and Steven Seagal worked together in front of the fascinated Hollywood crowd. Ali showed Seagal the subtle art of reading an opponent's body language, the tiny movements that showed punches before they were thrown. "Watch the shoulders," Ali explained as they moved around each other. "Watch the eyes. Watch the shift in weight. Your Aikido teaches you to respond to attacks, but boxing teaches you to see them coming before they happen." In return, Seagal showed Ali some of the philosophical principles behind Aikido, the mental discipline that allowed a martial artist to remain calm and centered even in the face of violence. In Aikido, Seagal explained, will learn that the greatest victory is the fight that never happens. True strength isn't about overpowering your opponent. It is about understanding them so completely that conflict becomes unnecessary. Ali nodded thoughtfully. You know what, Stephen? I think you are on to something there. What nobody in that room realized was that they were witnessing a very important moment in Steven Seagal's life. The experience of having his attacks so effortlessly stopped by Ali, combined with the champion's kind response, fundamentally changed how Seagal approached martial arts. Years later, when Seagal became a Hollywood action star, he would often credit that evening with Muhammad Ali as the moment he learned that true martial arts mastery was not about proving superiority over others, but about understanding the deeper principles of combat and human nature. Ali taught me something that night that 20 years in Japan could not teach me. Seagal would later tell interviewers. He taught me that the greatest fighters do not need to prove they are the greatest. Their presence alone is enough. The story of Muhammad Ali's 3-second lesson to Steven Seagal became the stuff of Hollywood legend. In an industry built on image and showing off, here was a demonstration of true confidence, the kind that does not need to destroy opponents to prove its worth. Many of the actors and producers who witnessed the encounter that night would later hire Seagal as an action choreographer and eventually star in his own films. They had seen something real in that moment, a glimpse of what real martial arts mastery looked like. But more importantly, they had seen Muhammad Ali at his absolute best, not as a destroyer, but as a teacher, not as someone who needed to humiliate an opponent, but as a champion who could show superiority while simultaneously lifting others up. What happened between Muhammad Ali and Steven Seagal that night in 1979 was about more than just martial arts techniques. It was a demonstration of something much more deep and profound, the difference between skill and wisdom. Seagal had spent years perfecting his technique, developing devastating efficiency in stopping attacks. But Ali had spent decades not just learning how to fight, but learning how to understand fighters. He had studied every type of opponent, every style of combat, and every psychological approach to conflict. When Ali told Seagal to hit him, he was not showing off or taking an unnecessary risk. He was demonstrating that true mastery comes from understanding your opponent so completely that their attacks become predictable, almost inevitable. The 2-inch head movement that avoided Seagal's punch was not luck or superhuman reflexes. It was the result of 20 years of studying how fighters move, how they show their intentions, and how they commit to attacks. The finger to the forehead was not a fighting technique. It was a lesson in physics and psychology, showing how the smallest force applied at exactly the right moment and position could redirect much larger forces. Both men left that party changed by their encounter. Ali gained a new appreciation for the mental discipline and philosophical depth of traditional martial arts. Seagal gained an understanding of what it meant to truly read an opponent, to see attacks before they materialized. Their brief friendship, lasting several months as they occasionally trained together, would influence both of their approaches to combat and life. Ali, already moving toward the end of his boxing career, found in Aikido principles some of the mental peace that would help him transition from active competition to an elder statesman. Seagal, meanwhile, took Ali's lessons about reading opponents and applied them not just to his martial arts, but to his acting career, his understanding of human nature, and his approach to resolving conflict. Today, nearly 50 years later, the story of Muhammad Ali and Steven Seagal's encounter remains one of the most fascinating crossovers between boxing and martial arts, between American and Eastern fighting philosophies. It reminds us that true mastery is not about dominating others or proving superiority. It is about understanding your craft so deeply that you can demonstrate its principles with the lightest possible touch, teach its lessons with the gentlest possible guidance, and share its wisdom with the most generous possible spirit. Muhammad Ali did not need to hurt Steven Seagal to prove he was the better fighter. 3 seconds, 2 inches, and 1 finger were enough to demonstrate the difference between technique and mastery, between skill and wisdom. And in doing so, the greatest showed once again why he earned that title. Not just through his victories in the ring, but through his ability to elevate every encounter, every challenge, and every moment into something larger than itself. The lesson Steven Seagal learned that night, that true strength comes from understanding rather than overpowering, would guide him throughout his career and life. And the lesson Muhammad Ali demonstrated, that wisdom shared is more powerful than wisdom hoarded, continues to inspire fighters, actors, and anyone who faces challenges in their daily lives. Sometimes the most important victories happen not when we prove we are right, but when we help others discover what is possible. The encounter between Muhammad Ali and Steven Seagal that night did not just change the two men involved. It sent ripples through Hollywood's martial arts community that would influence action movies for decades to come. Several prominent directors who witnessed the demonstration began incorporating more realistic fighting choreography into their films. They had seen what real martial arts mastery looked like, and it was far more subtle and impressive than anything they had been putting on screen. But perhaps the most profound impact was philosophical. In an industry often built on ego and competition, here was a demonstration of how true champions conduct themselves. Ali could have easily embarrassed Seagal in front of Hollywood's elite. Instead, he chose to create a teaching moment that elevated both of them. This approach became a template that many other champions would follow. It showed that true strength comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. Here was Muhammad Ali, arguably the greatest athlete of the 20th century, using his moment of superiority to build a bridge rather than burn one. If this incredible story of wisdom, respect, and the meeting of two legendary fighting philosophies moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who really needs to hear about the power of true mastery over flashy technique. Have you ever experienced a moment where someone's wisdom completely changed your perspective? Let us know in the comments section down below. And do not forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about legendary figures who shaped combat sports and Hollywood.